Welcome to In the Loop. In this episode, we're going to be discussing the November 11th Roth Report, which gives some prediction, thoughts on post-election with the new administration and where the industry is going and some things to possibly expect. So we're going to go through that, let you know what they say, give you our opinions. So the Roth Report is titled Sustainability, the Solar Snapshot, ITC to phase out earlier and require domestic content. Some issues about Solar Edge and the challenges they're having, as well as PW3. But I think what's really our main focus for this discussion is just thoughts on where the industry is going with the new administration. You know, there was a red sweep. We know as of today, I believe that the Republicans have the House as well as the Senate, and of course, as well as the presidency. And so one of the things that the article discusses right out of the gate is that there may be some changes to the ITC.
Right. Yeah, and this article starts out by saying, assuming a red sweep, Warren, and today we know that is the case.
Yeah.
Trump is going to be president, the Senate's going to be red, the House is going to be red. So no more questions there. That's going to happen. The industry is saying the sky is falling. And it might seem that way, Warren, because obviously the IRA came from the Democrats and under, Democratic leadership. But I don't think the sky is falling. Today we'll talk a little bit why. The biggest thing that you mentioned, Warren, is the ITC. I think what Roth is saying, and I think what I'm hearing elsewhere in the industry, is that the biggest potential change is that the ITC starts stepping down sooner, and maybe has some requirements around domestic content to get just the 30%. So the cool thing about the IRA is that it extended the 30% through 2030 and a little bit beyond, and it gave some adders. Energy communities at 10%, domestic content another 10%. So they might pull that back to earlier years and then require domestic content, just get the base 30%.
Yeah, according to the article, it looks like there's the potential to pull the ITC as well as the PTC for those who are using the PTC instead of the ITC, to end those as early as potentially 2027 or 2028.
Right. That could happen. So a full repeal of the IRA looks and seems unlikely, but adjusting a few things, adjusting the timeline, adjusting the percentages, I think that's all potentially in play at this point.
Right. And according to the article, one of the reasons that this is in play, of course, we know that Elon Musk is part of the administration now for government efficiency, is looking to cut wherever possible, but they're also looking to, in order to extend the Trump tax cuts, they need to find somewhere else to cut, and it looks like this is potentially on the table.
Right, correct. Yeah, they're going to try to find ways to cut, and this might be a way that they can potentially.
Right. And what about wind?
I don't know. I think wind is a little bit of an unknown, Warren, but according to what I'm reading and hearing, it sounds like Trump is not a big fan of wind, especially offshore wind. Offshore wind might be in trouble. There's a potential there. But I think what I'm reading and seeing and feeling from the industry is that Trump is okay and maybe even likes solar, but wind might be a different thing.
Right. I think if you look at it, just take a step back for a second, there's the probability that the ITC and PTC will be shortened and extend sooner than 2032 or whenever they were supposed to originally expire. But there's no doubt that the Trump administration has been very clear about energy independence, energy dominance, and solar plays a role in that, and also about bringing manufacturing back to the United States, which really plays into the domestic content adder, and that, as you said, might be a requirement, but I don't see that going away anytime soon.
I think you're probably right, Warren. And, there's two things on the manufacturing side. One is the domestic content adder, which is becoming a bigger and bigger thing. And then the other is 45X, the tax credits that manufacturers can get for making the product in the U.S. With all of Trump's previous support for U.S. manufacturing, and, kind of the animosity with China, I don't think that's going to go away. I think I'd be surprised if anything happens with that. I think that's probably going to stay. And that's going to continue pushing this manufacturing renaissance in the U.S.
Right. And Roth seems to be in agreement with you there, Larry. They don't think that that's going away either. Interesting, they say that our checks also suggest that domestic content safe harbor tables may be at risk in the near term.
Yeah, and I'm not exactly sure what to make of that, Warren. So we haven't had final guidance on domestic content yet. And that's supposed to be coming out hopefully by the end of the year. So right now we're going by just potential guidance, what we think it's going to be, and we can structure our deals around that for now until the final guidance comes out. So
Right.
what happens around that, I don't know.
Right. That's going to be interesting to watch.
Yep, it will be.
Then something else, I just want to quote Roth over here. It says, I think that the uncertainty and impact will be settled in the first 6 months of his administration. So when we're thinking about the timeline on when we'll get an understanding of really what's happening, what's on the chopping block and what's not, looks like we'll know that relatively soon, within probably the first year, if not sooner.
Yeah, I think so, Warren. And that's where there's always midterm elections. So if, depending what Trump does in the first year to 2 years, depending what Congress does, the voters can punish them in midterms if they don't like what's going on. So they kind of have a relatively short window to do something really dramatic because it's rare that one party stays in power like that for 4 years. So they're probably going to jump on this very quickly. I think they're going to be more concerned about immigration. I think they're going to be more concerned about tax credits. I think they're going to be more concerned about more drilling, some of those types of things. And I don't think solar is going to be, the IRA, I don't think it's going to be the number one priority from the start. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Now, fortunately, organizations like SEIA have been doing a really good job of making inroads with Republican lawmakers. Even when Republicans were in the minority, they did a really good job of working with both sides of the aisle. And we just have to see that continue and continue doing that.
Right. Now let's talk about, Larry, the impact that we've seen on some of these solar manufacturers, their stock prices, and how they're doing, particularly SolarEdge has really taken it on the head.
Yeah, SolarEdge has taken a bath. So has Sonova, a number of other installers and manufacturers. And Warren, I think it's an overreaction, but I also understand that long term, if the IRA is adjusted, it will affect these companies and they will see lower revenue in the next, say, 2 to 5 years, depending on the changes that are made. So while I think it's an overreaction today, it's going to have an impact.
Correct. It definitely is. I agree with you, Larry. And there's also the supply chain challenge that impacts many of these companies, especially with the push to bring everything domestically and have it manufactured here, the massive demand for domestic content, and the delay to get some of these products out has an impact on some of these manufacturers and their ability to generate revenue in the short term.
Absolutely. Yeah, no doubt the manufacturing world has been turned upside down trying to move all kinds of manufacturing from overseas to locations here. They've done it, and they've done it very quickly. That's very difficult to do. And so we'll see how that impacts them in the short term and the long term.
In summary, just a quick recap. We expect, I think both you and I agree that we expect some changes to the ITC in terms of the timeline that'll be available. Will probably be shortened, and we'll probably see a bigger push on the domestic content side, maybe make that a requirement to drive that a little harder. But other than that, we really aren't expecting dramatic changes on the solar side. And those manufacturers that are successful in bringing manufacturing back to the United States I think we'll be successful and will thrive over the coming years.
I think you're right, Warren. I think overall the industry probably is not going to install as much solar as what we would have otherwise. But I think long term, there's still going to be a lot of manufacturers and a lot of installers that do really well and continue installing a lot of projects.
Well, that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you, Larry, for joining us. Be sure to check out our In the Loop playlist, explore our Solar Learning Center, or request your custom quote using the links in the description below. And before you go, don't forget to subscribe and click that like button. And leave a comment to share your thoughts. Let us know what you think, and thanks for watching.